This hour of broadcasting brought to you by 𝗃𝗴RadioCenter.com, a Motorola value-added reseller. Welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. Brought to you by Vigilant Impact. The Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization dedicated to equipping the vigilant, those men and women who stand watch, keeping our houses of worship and places of faith safe. We believe church safety and security must be a ministry first and have engaged, servant leaders who continually strive for excellence and teams of motivated volunteers that are always training. Join us for the next hour as the Church Safety Guys unpack safety, security, leadership, and ministry operations with your hosts, Dr. 𝗧𝗵𝗂𝗿𝗵𝗂 and Mike Scully. This broadcast is also available on YouTube, your favorite podcast platforms, churchsafetyguys.com, and on the original Church Security app. Download it today. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share with your ministry.
Hello and welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. I am James, and once again on another broadcast joined by my co-host Mike and guest host Jared. I say that, but it's not really my program tonight or on this broadcast because we turned it over to Jared. So it's usually who he's hornswoggled to get to come on the broadcast.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Almost didn't. Kind of had a I don't know if it was COVID or what it was, but had quite the week here. So
I thought COVID expired.
So did I, and I thought once you had it and then had it the second time and it got less and that it was actually weakening. No, this actually kicked my butt a lot more than any other time that I've had it. So,
well, glad you're back, and yeah, I'm glad to be back as recurring guest host. Fortunately, I've got friends that are way cooler than me that I can invite on, and we can learn from. So, I always look forward to this broadcast and hanging out with both of you guys and talking through church safety and security and what we can learn from different aspects of it.
It's almost as fun as alligators, raccoons, and low-hanging ceilings.
Well, I was going to say something like, we'll have to pay you. We'll have to give you the $20 later for all of that stuff, Jared.
Well, you would definitely be better off spending $20 on a radio ad. I've got a face for radio, so we can go into negotiations for that.
It's great that most of our audience actually listens to the recording, not the video, but
well, welcome. If this is the first time that you've been back with us in a while, or this is your first time at all, we appreciate you hanging out with us for the next hour. As always, you can reach out to us through our website, which is churchsafetyguys.com. And if we can be of any help to you or your place of worship in the church safety and security realm, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to help you. And then, as always, there's plenty of resources available on our church security app, which is free to download, free to register. And you can certainly go on there and take advantage of that for your team and hopefully be blessed. But as always, we're here for you, and certainly thankful. I know, like, Mike's had a crazy week with being sick and all that fun stuff. I've had a crazy week adding another church safety guy to the mix. So if you didn't see that, we actually added Glenn Evans will be joining our ministry and helping us out. And I'm excited about that. Another fellow Ohioan.
Yeah, that Ohio. Hey, Jared, we're gonna have to do something about that. We're getting outnumbered up there.
Yeah, those Mr. Midwestern folks know how to band together.
Well, Glenn is a fantastic guy. Certainly no stranger to church safety and security. He's been doing church safety and security actually around the U.S. since I think 2009, and has trained hundreds, if not thousands, of churches, and has created certainly an enormous amount of videos and online content. And so we're excited that he is actually going to join us and help with some of our online offerings for churches, and then certainly also he's going to be helping with training. So it'll be great to have another individual in Ohio for me anyway. But I think next weekend he's helping a church, and he's already reached out and said, hey, do you want to come out? So I'll be, I think, probably driving out next weekend to visit him on site. And
you realize the more friends you gather, James, the busier your calendar gets.
Yep. It's seemingly that way. Like we were sitting there saying, funny how it works, right? We're looking at, we're like, okay, we're going into Q2 here, and we're like, okay, it's good. We've already kind of had the conference, and we've already kind of done the different. So we're actually in good shape because we don't have a May conference this year. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be a quiet quarter. No, let's actually add to the ranks and onboard yet another member, and let's tackle a whole bunch of behind the scenes technology stuff all at the same time. So God always has other plans when we think we're going to have an easy day.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we do. It does seem like it comes in interesting timing, but yeah. I honestly, I wasn't really planning on having a conversation with Glenn, and we ended up at the same event, which was the, what was it? The first responder event that was out in Dayton, that we had the guys on a couple of episodes ago. Yeah.
The rug beats.
Yep. And so I happened to run into him, and we happened to be talking, and it was just one of those things where I walked away, and we ended up doing the O'Fallon conference, and then it worked out. And so it's one of those things to me, where I feel like God's working in the details, and just bringing the right things at the right time. So I'm at least thankful for the opportunity, certainly, to grow and do stuff with you guys. And then last week, 2 weeks ago, I finished the CPS training with the Ohio Crime Prevention Association, which I was excited about. And we've already had quite a few churches reach out to us, even in a short span, and ask us to come out and do assessments and different things like that. So it's always good to have an extra set of hands, for sure.
And that's something we never anticipated taking off, is the assessment side was certainly something we've done enough with our churches, but it's like up 300% this year over last year. So it's pretty crazy. So it's good.
Yep. And we'll see what comes down the pike. We've certainly got some other stuff that we're kicking around and trying to figure out logistics of. So it will definitely be an interesting thing. So
yeah, no shortage of fun. That's for sure.
For sure. Well, I have to get back into my habit of writing and pick up. That's like the one thing I keep keep looking at my list of things, and I'm like, I really need to pick up the next book in the ministry life cycle series. And
Hey, I haven't added anything to that list in a while.
yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. It wouldn't be pleasant. This is a Christian based broadcast. I'm sorry. So
well, we already have a backlog as it is.
Yeah.
You just need a long flight, James. Crank out a book or two on a long flight, and then
yeah, you say that, but my wife has been actively trying to squeeze in a family vacation, and it's really funny because there's two places that actually came up. One place is Washington, Seattle, which is about a 4-hour flight. And then the other place is actually Israel. We've been talking about going to Israel for our 20th anniversary, which we never really celebrated. So we were talking about trying to do that. And I'm like, you realize like flying out there is like, 12 hours, 15 hours. So I'm like, okay, well, your wishes.
That's a whole book series, Mike. He could easily crank out an entire new line of
I'm sitting
material
on this plane, yeah, and I'll be like, I'm not talking to either one of you at all, because you're just going to give me more stuff to work on my computer while I'm halfway over the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, we can't help that. We had to pause the series a little bit because of God inspired us to kind of put together the 4 pillars as a book, not just a seminar topic. And it went from being about us and our ministry to realizing that it's not just about us, it's really about the ministry itself. And so we found a way to take it from a very biographical type seminar topic into a very teaching foundational pillars topic that churches are now using as part of their quarterly trainings. And so they're unpacking a different pillar each quarter and using that as foundational material for growing and driving the excellence into their team. So it's pretty amazing. So that was a detour we didn't know God was going to take.
For sure. And just in case I didn't mention it, there is the Church Security Essentials Conference that we did in St. Louis in March. All of those episodes are available for online streaming, and you can go to our website and access those. So there's a couple of different options. There's an option to rent them individually, or if it's something you want to share with your church, you're welcome to do that. And then all of the proceeds for that just goes straight back into the ministry and enables us to bring more content and conferences. So without further eloquence, I will throw it over to Jared, and he can introduce our guest.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have our guest on tonight. This guest is a team lead. I didn't have to go too far to get this guest. He's a team lead here at Rock Point for us, has become a really good friend. I joke about the Midwesterners, but whenever I can steal one, I do. He moved here from Iowa a couple years ago, and he's actually a sergeant at a local agency. And so we're going to bring in my friend Clay Leonard, like I said, who's a sergeant, works locally, actually took an hour break to join us from an undisclosed conference room here in Arizona. And Clay has been, like I said, just a great friend and incredible team leader. And the reason I brought Clay on is mainly because he does such an amazing job of bridging the gap between our ministry that we do here at Rock Point as safety and security, and really takes that ministry to his fellow officers on the street, as well as those people that he deals with. And I'm going to let Clay introduce himself, but I also know that he's a humble guy, and his experience and the things that God has allowed him to be a part of and involved in is incredible. And I think there's a lot of crossover, Clay, that we've talked about between both ministering to your law enforcement in the church, but how you approach your shift on a daily basis and how we can approach our shifts each week that we come and serve the local body. So Clay, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into some good stories and great takeaways, hopefully.
Okay, sounds good. First of all, thank you. I'm humbled by very kind words. I appreciate that a lot. As Jared told you, I'm a Midwest boy. I'm from Iowa. I grew up in a small town in Southwest Iowa called Orient. I had 30 in my graduating class, but I came from a very rural area with a bunch of hardworking people, great people. So I'm very fortunate and thankful for that. I got to grow up around that. So from there, I went into law enforcement back in about 2007. It was in fall of 2007. I was hired by an agency there in central Iowa, small town as well. We had about 15 officers on the agency there. And I served there for about 5.5 years, where then I was a deputy sheriff at a Dallas County Sheriff's Office in Iowa there. And I was a patrol deputy. And that's really where I got a lot of my training for hostage and crisis negotiating, and really got to, I guess, dig deeper into that and learn a lot more, and then use those skills that I've been blessed with. I love talking to people. I love people. So I was able to dig into that and then learn more and how to use those skills that God has blessed me with. And then not only have I been blessed with those, then how to use those on a daily basis, and or in situations where, you have stressful situations or people that are at their lowest of lows and they call us because they don't know who else to call. But from there, went through some just trials and tribulations in life that we all go through. But my wife and I really prayed about it back in 2019. Really started praying about, all right, God, we want to get more involved in our church. We want to be more involved. We want to do more. We want to do more for you. And voila, God opened these doors down here in Arizona. With that said, obviously, we really wanted to be here as well, so we prayed about that. But we just prayed that we could find a place in Arizona that we could kind of continue our family, or grow our family, I should say. We have 2 daughters, beautiful daughters. Grateful for them as well. But during that transition from Iowa here, we were praying that we would find a church that we could be a part of and really be fed and all that. So the spring of 2020, we came down. Actually, it was correction. It was the winter of 2019. My wife and I came down.
There wasn't much going on that time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot. No. But my wife and I actually came down to visit some other family that were down here, and my family actually suggested that we try Rock Point Church. They had heard about it. They had never been there either, and they're like, "Hey, we'd love you to go try or go see this campus and church with us." And awesome. Absolutely. So we went there for a Sunday service, and of course, as soon as we get on Rock Point facility there, or I'm sorry, the campus, we were greeted by several people that were smiling and happy. And of course, the weather was amazing. So right away, we were like, okay, we're really liking this. But anyway, what was really cool was when my wife and I went into the sanctuary area to then begin services and all that, the praise band came on, and I look over at my wife and she's just crying. I'm like, whoa, you okay? It gets me teary-eyed a little bit, because we've been praying for so long to find somewhere that we felt embraced, loved, felt the Holy Spirit. And that was it. My wife said, this is where we're meant to be. It was really cool. And during that sermon too, Pastor Bill was talking about how he was on doing a bungee jump. And instead of waiting for the count of 3, it was 1, 2, jump. He didn't even wait for 3. And the guy's like, wait, hold on. He's like, what did I do? Anyway, so basically, Pastor Bill said, if you're waiting for somebody to count to 3 and then say jump, why are you waiting? God's calling you to do something. Listen. And my wife and I are like, whoa, blown away 3 times now. So third luck was the charm, I guess. So we found ourselves at Rock Point. Then once we moved down here, and then met Jared during, I believe it was for the volunteer connection and all that, where you can volunteer at the church there. And of course, with my law enforcement experience, and then my current law enforcement experience here in the state of Arizona, I met up with Jared and kind of talked to him a little bit about what I felt God was calling me to do. But during the course of that, was really cool is I mentioned that I was a hostage and crisis negotiator as well. And Jared was like, I've been praying for a guy like you to come in here that can teach us how to talk to people. And more than anything, to have God use you to speak to others as well. We all know that God will use other people to speak to us in many different ways, right? So I was humbled that Jared was so welcoming and so willing to trust me. But what was really cool is just how he embraced me and then allowed me to just say, run with it, Clay. God's blessed you, take it, kind of thing. So from there, obviously, then I joined the team. I was a team member for, I think it was a short amount of time, Jared, if I remember right.
A handful of months, 6 months, maybe.
Yeah, it was really short. And then he asked me one day, we were at church there, and said, hey, have you ever thought about being a team lead for our church, safety and security, one of our team members? I'm like, I would love to. I'd be humbled. I'd be honored. Grateful that you'd even think of me. I still look at myself as kind of that little Midwest small town Iowa boy that's kind of back over there. And when people call upon me, I'm like, yay, so from there, I was able to kind of really, I guess, dig into really what God wanted me to do, not only for law enforcement, but what can I do outside of law enforcement and still give back to others and share what knowledge I have, the experience I have, and then just my love for people. I love people. I feel so, I guess it makes me so happy when I get to see people. It's like that little puppy dog, right? Anyway, I was able to kind of take that team lead role. And again, Jared has been amazing in supporting me with that. And humbled by all the stuff that he's allowed me to share and all that. So.
Yeah, he has a way of jumping in there and convincing people to kind of like him. I'm not really sure why that is, but he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, nobody's figured out what it is that I do, but yeah.
No, and he said it well earlier too. I truly embrace our friendship. It's funny. We'll see each other in passing, kind of, and it's like we just instantly like, hey, we hug like we've been brothers for years. And you look at it, and it's been 2.5, almost 3 years, and it feels like a lifetime. So he has that aura about him as well. So
it's interesting, Clay. I want to pick up on something that you said, because there's a similarity there. So I feel that moment that you talked about it, in the sense that when you felt God was sending you to Arizona, that there was interest, but you felt like it was a send me moment. In 2019, similar timing, a little bit ahead of yours, I think. God actually moved us from the frozen, chosen state of Massachusetts down to Austin, Texas. And so that was a radical shift for our family. We had no family here, but God had better plans and knew better than we did. So we got down here in 2019, and little did we know that for the following year, after taking that leap of faith and stepping out of that boat and walking on that water, we found out every day either some really great reason it was good to be here in Texas, or some really great reason it was good to be not in Massachusetts. And so every single day something came on, and it was just affirmation of continual. So I totally know that idea is that jump is not you don't wait, you just go. And that when you realize that you truly have his voice and you're listening, the amazing things that lines up is just unreal. So I wanted to share that with you, because the timing is uncanny, but the amazing things God can do and to put you in the right place is pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Well said.
For sure.
Amen.
Honestly, we had a similar situation happen with my wife and I with the church that we have been attending now for the last 15 years. And, we moved similar to you guys, and we were praying for a church because we hadn't been involved with one. We wanted to be involved with one, and we walk in and actually ended up meeting and walking straight into basically meeting one of the pastors who is now one of my best friends at that church. but it was just one of those weird coincidences, which probably isn't a coincidence. It was probably a God thing. But walking in, it's like, we just happened to bump into this family, and he's like, "Hey, I'm one of the pastors here. Can I show you around? Hey, your kids' ages are about the same as my kids' ages." And the rest is kind of history. So it's and looking back even now, ministry and how God used that to connect us to the right church at the right time. Looking back over 15 plus years of church ministry and everything else, I still laugh about that, because it's like, I couldn't have planned it any better either. So it's always cool when God shows up like that.
Absolutely. His timing is perfect, and we may not understand it sometimes, or why can't it happen sooner?
For sure.
We all know here that when it happens, it's like, okay, yep, you definitely knew God better than I did.
Yeah. It's not I wonder if it's that this is a no duh moment,
Yep.
Yeah, I think, and the thing that struck me about Clay, and I look back at my law enforcement career, and I feel like I missed a lot of opportunities to use that for ministry. I very much had kind of my church life, and then I had my work life, and rarely did those two meet. And when it did, it was a really awkward situation that I didn't know how to navigate well. And so one of the things that I love about Clay is that his love for God and his love for people transcends whether he's at work or whether he's at church, whether he's serving the least of these in their worst of their moments, or fellow officers and law enforcement, both at his job and here at church. And so Clay, talk to us a little bit about, because I think the similarities in people often call law enforcement on their worst day. And if it's not a life-threatening emergency and they have some faith basis, they will often reach out to God or the physical presence of his people on their worst day. And so talk to us a little bit about where that love for people comes from, and maybe some unique or interesting opportunities that you've had to apply those gifts and skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, one of the commandments is, love, right? So I feel like God has always blessed me with kind of a guy that's always kind of wears his heart on his sleeve too, I guess, so to speak. Growing up, I always was, I guess, the kid that always like, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, you okay?" Lift people up kind of. And again, that was obviously God working. It wasn't necessarily the Clay, but during the course of all this, obviously, and learning how people react to things and all that, sometimes, what is it Pastor Bill always says too, hurt people. But if I can be that kind of that bridge to get them away from the hurt, what can I do that God would want me to do? So obviously I try to listen, but I love them and remind them too that they are cared for, they're worthy, they are loved. And then also in my interactions with people, when I carry myself, I've had people come up to me before on the street that we're dealing with homelessness and stuff like that. It's unfortunately going on a lot of places right now. But with homelessness, a lot of those people do love God, but they kind of been hurt, and kind of through their trials and tribulations have kind of gotten away from God. So my goal, I guess, is each day, if I could serve the Lord by just planting that mustard seed of faith back into them and let the Holy Spirit work from there, then that's one step closer, or that's one thing that's bringing them a little bit closer to God. And if they have a little bit of time to talk, I absolutely do it. And then I'll also check back up on them. But the biggest thing I have found, that reminding them that Jesus loves them and loves me equally. They are just as worthy of his love as I am. And it's amazing how many of them will be brought to tears when I remind them that they are loved. And just that little bit of hope, a little bit of love goes a long ways. Sometimes I'll see them a few weeks later, and they're like, "Hey, I remember you, Sergeant Leonard." I'm like, "Yeah, how's it going?" Anyway, they said they always remember my conversation, and they're thankful that God brought our paths together and crossed, even if it was just for a brief moment. So I guess the big thing is I always, especially when I come into work, I always pray, Lord, I just pray that every step I take is in your glory. Every breath that I breathe is in your glory. And everything I say that comes out of my mouth is of you, Lord. I'm not perfect. And when I do things, I'm like, oh, that was, I guess, shouldn't have done that or said that or whatever. I quickly correct myself and remind myself, though, that little error, I'm forgiven, but guide in the way and lead in the way that God would want me to. And that will transpire to others as well. So that's kind of one way I try to, I guess, take the day on. And then during the course of my duties, while I'm at work and stuff, obviously I always carry that in my heart. And talking to people, I remember an incident where I actually was going to attempt to talk to somebody, and somebody in the community stopped me and thought that I was there to harass these individuals. And little did they know, at that time, actually, I'd had a conversation with this gentleman several days prior to, and that during the course of the citizens encounter in mine, they found out my love for God, and that I'm actually not there to serve in a capacity to harass or put people out or hurt them. I'm actually there to love on them and love them like God would want me to love them, and reminded them as well that we are equal in this world and that God loves us all. And anyway, by the time we were done with the conversation, obviously went more in depth, but by the end of the conversation, I remember her leaving and she rolled down her window. She's like, "You just made my day." And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. But that was all God. That wasn't me. That was something that I was able to express and kind of share and change that opinion of somebody, but maybe remind them too that they're loved. So, and then obviously when I go to church, then I if needed, at the capacity of, I guess the peace officer in me, so to speak, I try to, more than anything, when I go to church and serve at Rock Point for safety and security, one thing I want to do also is amongst our team, so to speak, is make sure that I get the time to talk to each individual on our team and find out how they're doing, see how their day's going, their week's going, their month. Some of us are going through a lot, and it's more than just maybe having that cop mind and, hey, I'm going to go around and make sure that this person doesn't, speed through here or something. I'm just using an example. But more than anything, checking on our own people and making sure they're okay as well. Because obviously in this position as a team lead, God has me and wants me to do more than just be, hey, I'm the team lead here, look at me, we're going to march here, do this kind of thing. No, it's going to be ministering to our own as well as anybody that comes on the campus. And that's my biggest thing or biggest prayer that I have every time I go in there is, even if I'm having a bad day, I pray for strength to get through that, because I know with God, that'll be possible. And I know I can be there and get through that and be there for them. I've gotten to learn a lot about people on our team, but they've also helped me too. And they may not know that, but maybe they help me as well. So really it's a blessing for both of us to minister together and come together and then serve at Rock Point the best we can.
Almost like a spiritual beat, Clay.
Absolutely.
You're kind of walking a spiritual beat with the team members, and
yes,
it's great. I mean, James and I have unpacked that a lot in our book, Engage, because it's really, you have to engage these people as individuals, not taskmongers. I mean, they're not just there to stand a post. They're not just there to fill a roster. They're literally there to serve the same church that we're serving as leaders, and we got to make sure they see us as humans, as not just, yeah, we're their boss, yes, we're the lead of that team, but at the same point, that's really from an incident and structure, and so that we can teach and nurture and learn. But it's amazing the number of times that you get the three-headed look coming back at you when you kind of like reach out to somebody like that, or worse, you actually text them in the middle of the week and they're like, is there an emergency or something, or what's going on? Like, they don't expect it, but now the guys do. I mean, it's kind of common at this point. So it's nice that you've bridged those worlds together, and that you've managed to kind of take that duty, if you will. That's why I kind of refer to it. I almost picture it, as you were talking about, I saw it as a beat, is you're literally kind of beating it across and walking that. I really wonder, does your chief create a good spiritual environment as well? I mean, we're blessed. My chief he's always using scripture here and there. I mean, our volunteer meeting that he had just 2 weeks ago, both he and our commander both use scripture in their presentation, and they're very in love for God, and they don't mind wearing it on their sleeve, and they don't mind saying it in public, because there's press conferences and he's out there and he's putting it right out in front of everybody too. So I was just curious if you have that modeled in yours as well.
Yes. What was really cool is when we just got a new chief of police here about a little over a year ago. He's from another agency here in Arizona. And one of my first conversations with him, because I guess I don't really hide anything as far as like my faith. So one of my very first conversations with him was how how strong I am in my faith. And I truly believe that God has me here for a reason, has him here for a reason. It was really cool, because I think the next things out of his mouth is that's one of the things I love about you, Clay. So yes, he's very
great.
Allows that. He's open to that. Yes, he is a faith-based man as well. He believes in God. I'm grateful for that. I've been fortunate where I've had some really good leadership in law enforcement, where they have allowed me to either volunteer at churches or allow me to express my faith in God and not be held back. And he's that way as well. And I'll see him in the parking lot, hey, Clay, how's it going? I'm grateful, blessed, and I thank the Lord for another day. And he's amen, So yes, he does allow me to express my faith, and then my command staff's the same way. That's why they're allow me, even though, I'm at work, they allow me this time away so I can do this as well, because they know how important that is to me and to others as well. So absolutely.
It's amazing.
100% grateful. So.
Praise God.
For sure. I want to go back real quick to what Mike said a minute ago with the engagement. And that's kind of what popped into my head as well, is the connection between you as a team leader caring for the folks that you serve with. And, a lot of times, I mean, being in public safety or having experience in public safety, you see things that the average person doesn't typically see. And so you start to develop like this kind of attitude towards, okay, well, I'll handle it. I'll problem solve. I'll fix this, whatever the situation comes in. But what's always crazy to me is being in that position, the leadership position. Oftentimes, the folks that are serving with you look at you like, hey, you're this special person that, nothing can impact you. Nothing can phase you, because, you've dealt with it all. And it's like, I've had that conversation several times with folks where I've said, look, I'm here to serve just like you are. And, I've looked for opportunities to connect with individuals at my church that I serve with. And I think honestly that truly is the difference between having a ministry first attitude and a heart for ministry and, just running a regular, security group. It's the fact that you're pouring in with as much enthusiasm into the people around you, that are serving and giving of themselves, and kind of taking that a step further. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you do that, because not everybody does. And that, that certainly makes a difference as far as, just trying to have the ministry first attitude and move forward. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. I as a team lead, I'm again, very humbled, and I feel like God has given me an opportunity to make an impact too, because sometimes we have a very small window, and in leadership, we all know that you can miss that opportunity, or you can say, no, I'm all in, Lord. Give me those tools. and get me through these times, even when I'm, like we're talking about earlier, like when I'm down, or I might be having a day where I'm a little tired, but I'm like, all right, God has given me a wonderful gift, and I don't want to lose that gift, and I don't want to see it pass. And that's where it comes back again. When you check in with your team, they may lift you up too. So it's all encompassing, you know. And then you got the word, the truth, the Bible to guide you along the way. So,
yeah, I think the thing that I love is you know, Mike called it walking the spiritual beat. Whether you are heading into work to work an actual beat or oversee people you know, working actual beats, or whether you're coming to church, that ministry mindset starts before you ever get to work, whether
yes,
it's here
absolutely.
or whether it's at your local department. As you said, driving in beforehand, really praying, all right, Lord, give me the eyes to see what you would want me to see. Give me the words to speak.
Absolutely.
You know, and he equips the called, but he also calls the equipped.
That's right.
And yeah, I think of was it about a month ago, we were catching up. I'm very blessed. We have Saturday and Sunday services, and I generally don't make it to both weekend days every week because I have leadership that I can trust to cover things. And this was a Saturday that I was catching up with Clay, and all of a sudden somebody goes, "That couple over there on the patio is getting pretty heated." And I don't even remember. You talked to him more than I did.
Yeah.
The cool thing was, here I'm the director of safety and security, and I just rolled up to join in Clay's conversation to learn from him and how he was interacting with the husband in this case. But yeah, Clay, tell us a little bit about when you're at church. You know, you expect when you're at work, you're going to get a domestic violence call a shift. You're going to get an angry motorist. You're going to get all those calls. I think people have this idea that we're going to go to church and we're going to put on a happy face and everything's fine. So tell us a little bit about the surprise, both to those on the patio and the couple that you got to talk with that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was a Saturday. I serve on Saturdays. My work schedule is Sunday through Wednesday. So Saturdays are awesome. Plus I love it because I feel like Saturdays are the day that you have opportunities to do other things, but instead we're going to go serve at church. So it was a Saturday. Actually, another guy came up to me and was like, "Hey, I think there's a husband and wife out here that aren't very happy, and they're starting to yell and raise their voice." And I'm like, "Okay." So I walked over just a little bit closer and kind of stood back from a distance and just kind of watched a little bit because it's an opportunity for either them to work through it or seek maybe some pastoral services, or possibly we need to ask them to separate and go their own way. So it was kind of that I have an opportunity. I can either invoke my peace officer power, so to speak, and say, "Hey, you can't do this. You're going to be asked to leave," or I could come at it at a ministry mindset. At that moment, I chose to obviously still have a little bit of that peace officer mindset, but more than anything, I'm here at the church to serve the Lord, so I'm going to go out at a ministry mindset. As the gentleman began to raise his voice and everything, there were people out on the patio area too. And I remember I told one of my others that were serving as well, I told them, I'm going to go talk to the man, because he got up and kind of slammed his book down. Actually, I think he slammed the Bible on the table, and then got up and walked away. And I told him, "Hey, you go talk to the female, check on her. I'm going to go talk to this gentleman and see what's going on." But as he's walking away pretty quickly, I just kind of talked to him in a gentle voice. I didn't yell like, "Hey, I need you to stop." It was one of those, "Sir, do you mind if I talk to you for a moment?" And he didn't say anything. So I kind of walked a little bit faster and I said, "Sir," I said, "my name is Clay. I'm part of the ministry team here on the safety and security. Do you mind if I talk to you for a moment?" And he stopped, and he did it like an about face and looked at me, and I walked up to him. I said, "Sir, I could hear you and your wife. My understanding is probably your wife having a disagreement on the patio. Can you tell me what's going on? Are you guys okay? We're here as a church. We want to be here to support you in times that, may be difficult in marriage or anything in life." And actually, the gentleman opened up pretty well. He was first telling me that, he kind of vented more than anything too, but really let me know what the disagreement was in pretty good detail, actually. So I learned a lot about the gentleman pretty quickly, but I listened to him. And then after he did that and he was upset, "I'm going to leave," and all this, my next words out of my mouth were, "What can I do to pray for you then?" And then he kind of looked at me and I said, "Can I have your name? I just first name's fine too. I don't have to have anything more than that. But can I have your first name so I can pray for you? I can pray for you and your wife, and be here for you guys, etc." And he told me his name, and I said, "Okay, I want to pray for you because we all have hard times in marriage. I've been there myself, but what I have found though is when you get people around you that can pray for you and keep you guys kind of on that track, then it's amazing what God can do and restore your marriage, you know." So we were able to talk to him, get him calmed down. He was very grateful. And then Jared walked up as well as we were kind of finishing up or actually it was about mid-conversation, I guess, wasn't it, Jared? About mid-conversation. So there may be a few little details I left out there, but essentially I was able to get his name, get him calmed down, and remind him that we're there to pray for him. I mean, we're more than just a security team and asking him to leave the campus. It was, "Hey, can you hold on a moment and let us pray for you?" So it was really cool.
It was probably the opposite of what he expected. He's getting up, walking away, embarrassed, and instead of get off my lawn, it was, "I actually want to engage with you." And I think about some of the stories you've told me with successful crisis negotiations, kind of the same thing. And some of the de-escalation techniques that you've taught our team. Man, that initial contact and the tone and your body language, how important that is.
Yeah, very much so. And it's just kind of like at home with your kids too, right? They're upset or frustrated, instead of yelling at them, maybe come out with a little different approach or something they didn't expect. But same thing on the street too. Maybe obviously a little bit higher levels, but I have used those techniques a lot. I had a standoff on a highway up in Iowa where we had to shut the highway down for 4.5 hours in the middle of winter. And I had to negotiate it with a gentleman on the road. And the crazy thing is his cell phone ended up dying. The only form of communication we had was to shut all the vehicles off and literally yell at each other. Because at that time, that's all we had out in the middle of nowhere in rural Iowa. But anyway, I learned a lot from that, and I was able to use those tools that God has blessed me with, patience, and then also listening, and then also showing that when I speak, it's not derogatory or bringing somebody down. It's, "Hey, we're equal here. You're loved. We're going to get through this. If it's 1 second at a time, we're getting through this." Giving that hope as well. But anyway, 4.5 hours later, the guy surrendered peacefully. He's a homicide suspect, and he came out peacefully. They would later do a debrief on him as we were standing on the side of the road real quick before he went, and basically is, "Why did you come out?" And basically what it was, "I trust you." And trust is a big thing in so many ways, right? We trust God. We trust our family members. We trust our friends. So trust is huge. So learning to gap those bridges in between, and then showing a homicide suspect essentially that, we're going to get through this. We're not judge. We're not jury. We're another human being, but gave him that hope, So sometimes it is difficult because you don't always 100% get the, surrender every time when you come at that approach. No. But there is a high percentage. And I always picture Jesus being in the boat and there's a storm and he's just like taking a nap, like, "Hey, we're all good here, and everybody's panicking and he's, fine." My thought is I try to encompass that as well and remind myself that even during the storms, Jesus is calm. He calmed the waters. So I try to embrace that. I try to use that as well in my daily walk in law enforcement. So
I think that's an awesome illustration, because I think a lot of times as the individual, that's over safety and security, or even if you're in leadership and you're serving in that capacity, people are looking at you all the time, at church 100% of the time. And just Mike and I have talked about that before, and I know that Jared and I have talked about it as well. But it's like, the role that is 100% constantly public relations, and everybody's like looking at you. Okay, how is he? How is the barometer today? Is he in a good mood? Is he in a bad mood? And I learned that, honestly, I learned that quite a few years ago by just different people in my church feeling comfortable or not feeling comfortable based on my reaction. And when I realized how powerful that was, to be able to say, okay, you know what, when I come in, I need to put my game face on, but I also need to be, really conveying that culture of safety and security in a positive way. Then, it was amazing to me how many people would come over to me and say, I saw this in the news, but I know that you are over this team. You've got a great group of people, and I appreciate how you serve, and I'm comfortable coming and worshiping because I know you guys have this, and I don't have to have that fear.
Right.
So to me, I mean, that's an awesome thing. But yeah, absolutely. It seems like all of the time, that's one of the things that sometimes we miss, that it's, how you hold yourself, how you carry yourself in that, makes all the difference in the world, because people are always watching.
Yes.
I feel like we're missing an opportunity here, in the sense that we don't have the cool gadgets like radio shows where we can get these cool sounds. But I feel like in more times tonight, I think, than the average episode, I think when there's just something that is so, not just so well said, but literally demonstrated of how you handled it, is the epitome of what we're always talking about on this show, is the idea that like, it's gold. That's the way, that's the gold standard. That's the way it should be done. So I think when we hear those things, I'd love to just play a little gong sound or something that just it resonates, because I want people to realize that what they just heard was solid gold, that if they can ascribe to do it exactly that way when they encounter a situation, that's where they'll yield the positive result.
Absolutely. Definitely. And I think within the human interaction too, the best thing we can do is show love and calmness. And like I said before, like Jesus, I read in scripture and everything, and then just watching and really looking at the words and just imagining how calm he was. And it's like, gosh, I want to be like that. Like, that's admirable. Like I can't fathom how important that is. And so anyway, I try to do that as well. And like we were talking earlier, that feeds off to your team, whatever type of leadership you may be in. Everybody's screaming, and you're just like, hey, it's going to be okay. We'll get through this. There's going to be an end to it. We might not like it, or it might not be exactly right or perfect, but there will be. And God's going to guide us. And no matter what, we're going to learn from it. So, but anyway, that was just kind of really feeding on, like you said earlier, the patience.
Yeah. The feeding to your team is so true. And I know we've mentioned it before, but the idea is we can be privy to certain pieces of information, whether that be a threat of some sort, whether that be a bolo, whether that be somebody that has been known to do something in the past that is now showing up on scene. Well, how we as leaders handle that information dissemination to our team, and the tone and the level of focus and what's that packaged with, determines how the team is going to behave. Because we can either provide information so that they're factually aware and ready, or how we provide them can come off as too excited, too hurried, too much over the top. And now all of a sudden you have a team that's now ginned themselves up unnecessarily to a level that now says, when something does potentially happen, that there now is an opportunity to perhaps apply a little extra grace and to go out and engage them. Now they're ginned up, and they've gone past that point of grace, and they're now into security guy mode. Yeah. And we got to make sure that we're not doing that unnecessarily. So it's the delivery, but it's also making sure they're receiving that information in a way that's not going to alter their behavior.
Absolutely. very, very important. I think too, when we have some bolos that come in that Jared may send us, or I think I've even sent him some on some other churches that are going on as well. But when you present that to your team, I always like to also present them in some scenarios as well and say, hey, okay, if this were to happen, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and all that. That way, when we're presenting it to them, it's in a calm manner. And then not only that, but I'm empowering them with the ability to handle the situation as well. So that it gives them confidence if they were to deal with it, and that keeps them calm as well. And then I guess the icing on the cake at the end is I always tell them, but if you have any questions or issues, let me know. I'll be there. But you said that, like you said, presenting them, giving them that scenario, keep calm, and this is how we're going to react. I think goes a long ways too. So,
yeah, I think one of the things that I love about Clay and his leadership that he's shown here, and that I hear about at his agency is he really walks out, Micah 6:8, which is not typically known as a safety and security key verse, but the Lord has told you what is good, and that what he requires of you is to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And you come in with that. You come in with that prayerful attitude. You walk humbly amongst both your team and those that God brings to you, who need to see his love, and that you show them mercy, and that ultimately you do what's right. And that translates and transcends whether you're in law enforcement leadership or business leadership or nursery leadership or safety and security. And so, yeah, such good stuff. I think there was more quality content than fun stories, but they really they went well. We could swap stories all day long,
yeah.
but eventually you gotta get
You
to the
know,
goal,
it's
as
funny.
Mike said.
It's funny you said that you use that verse, Jared, because I was watching a video, a press release before I came on the broadcast from Polk County, Florida. The sheriff that's always in the news, and he's a great guy. Well, it was interesting. He did a release where he fired 3 deputies and then charged them with information tampering on one of the arrests that they made. And one of his big things that he said was, he said, I hold my officers to a higher standard of moral and ethical standard. And he's like, I can't ask them to go out and police, the citizens in my county when I'm not holding them to a higher standard than what I asked those citizens to. And that really struck me. In a sense, with church safety and security, I feel very similar, right? It's like, we're not asking for authority. We're not looking at it like, hey, we're above everyone else, but we really need to be to a place where we're approachable and without reproach, right? And so I feel like that's where the passage in Micah comes in, because it calls us to a higher standard to say biblically and, morally and ethically, we need to make good choices and make sure that what we're doing is truly God honoring and supporting, the ministry and mission of the church. But sometimes doing that with humility is a challenge. And I certainly find myself at times struggling with that. It's the fine line between, saying, do this because I'm in charge of you as a volunteer and we need to do this because this is the right thing to do right now, but I think we've all 4 of us have had situations where, we've come across different things where we stepped in and said, you know what, we need to do this way because that's the way that's God honoring. And I think that makes the difference.
Absolutely.
If only the love our God and walk humbly could pack a room for a topic like active shooter does.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. And that means we try to uncover all of the things on this show, and the fact that the range of church safety and security starts with you as just an individual showing up to church.
Absolutely.
And yes, at the extreme potential end, that rare situation that you have to step up and do something and work in an active threat situation, we hope that your team has had the opportunity to prepare for it. But if there's other things that you haven't prepared for yet, start there. Get the core before you go after the elective. Don't just start buying up training because it says active shooter. You have other things to cover first.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For sure. So wrapping up because we're out of time. I would like to have you guys, or at least Jared and Clay, swap some stories. I'm always up for some more stories.
Well, I can tell you a rookie story real quick. It was funny. Think about this one. I was an FTO in my first agency, and we brought a guy in on a questioning on a domestic violence situation. And the guy that was training me was about 6'7", I don't know, close to 300 pounds, just big farm boy. But he was getting later in his years, so he was slowing down, I guess, so to speak. But anyway, we're interviewing this guy, and I'm an FTO. So he's like, hey, let's go around the corner. We're going to discuss this a little bit, and then we'll go back and talk to him. Okay, sounds good. So we go around the corner, we're talking. Well, as we're talking, we look out the front window of dispatch, and we see this guy running. We're like, gosh, that looks like the guy we were just interviewing. We're like, we look over to our right, and there's cameras there. He opened the door and ran out the front door because they're kind of close to the front of the PD or the exit door. And he memorized which doors to take, and he got the right ones, and he ran. Well, anyway, as we're running down the hallway, my FTO opens the door and says, go get him, Clay. And I'm like, okay. So I'm running down the road, and I'm down the sidewalk, and he's running. And I said, hey, you better stop. I'm going to catch you. And he's running, and I remember he looks over his shoulder, and he literally just stops and turns around, puts his hands up. And I'm like, so I run up to him and I cuff him. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I knew I could get away from the big guy, but I couldn't get away from you. So I'm like, all right. So anyway, just a fun little quick
awesome.
chase, run out of the story. So I learned quick chases quickly as a rookie cop. So
that's crazy. That's good stuff though.
This is great, Clay, and I look forward to the opportunity that when we make it out to Arizona to say hello. I tell you, Jared, bravo! The team you've put together, the people you keep bringing on, you're doing an amazing work there at Rock Point, and the culture is showing. The folks are oozing that culture. It's not just a talking point. It's not just, hey, this is what you were told to do. You can feel it. You can hear it coming across in the guests that you've brought on. So I look forward to the opportunity to attend someday.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys out. And, I kind of wake up every morning going, Lord, help me not to screw this up, because you've given me some incredible people, and I don't quite understand it. So if I were to get asked to explain how, I could say, only God, because I've got so many people on my team that I do constantly come to church and go, I kind of take care of the administrative stuff, and I'm able to kind of filter through some things that from the church world and the security first responder world. But ultimately, God's blessed me with people that I'm constantly learning from. I'm constantly challenged by and pressed to do better, to follow God in a new and different way that honors Him on a weekly basis. So, I give the kudos back to the Lord and the people He's brought me.
Mike beat me to it, because I was pretty much going to say verbatim the same thing, but I'm like, what in the world? Who did you have to pay to get all of these people on your team? And I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking the same thing, like, what? But
well,
I
got to say too, a big part of it is the leadership that planted the church. Clay mentioned Pastor Bill several times. Spoiler alert, he is confirmed to be a guest here in the next couple months, and so we're gonna dive into some of his engaged leadership principles that I've really learned from being his friend for 20 years and working for him under his leadership, and as well as some insights on how to really melt ministry with the safety and security mindset. And so I think a lot of the credit is I'm just kind of riding Pastor Bill's coattails and glad to be on the what he calls the island of misfit toys out here.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's through getting to know you and honestly serving in this ministry anyway with you. If I'm ever in, I don't know, if I'm ever in that area, I would definitely want to check out Rock Point. Like Mike said, I've been pretty encouraged, and I think I could probably walk in and talk to a few folks that I've met just from being on the broadcast. But it's
right
definitely good stuff.
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys for sure. I know that would be pretty cool. So,
well, we're pretty much out of time. So again, Clay, thank you for giving us your time, and certainly thank you for your service to the community and your ministry, because it certainly couldn't happen without your help. And honestly, we need more guys like you in law enforcement out in the community, because that supports community. And unfortunately, there's not enough media attention on guys like you that are making a difference. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that a lot. That means a lot, and gives me that continued confirmation from God, talking through others, that what I'm doing is right, and I need to keep doing it. So thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, so we'll wrap up here real quick, but again, if we can serve you or help your church or place of worship in any way, please feel free to reach out to us. And our website is 𝗓𝗃𝗄𝐻SafetyGuys.com. And we are on all of the regular social media platforms that you probably use. So check us out. Take the opportunity, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel if you would. And certainly you can join one of our groups on Facebook or one of the other social media platforms. But definitely reach out if there's anything we can help you out with, because we'd love to. And until next week, we will all talk to you later. So have a great week, be blessed, and take care.
This hour of broadcasting brought to you by 𝗃𝗴Radiocenter.com, a Motorola value-added reseller. Thank you for joining the Church Safety Guys broadcast, brought to you by Vigilant Impact. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback and interaction. Be sure to share our broadcast with your teams, join the discussion online, and connect with us on social media. For other great ministry resources, download the Church Security app or at our website at 𝗓𝗃𝗄𝐻SafetyGuys.com. Remember, keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and semper disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.